You can step in, love on a child, no matter what resources you have or don't have. It's time for the church to step up. Let us be the one that helps take care of these kids. Let us be the one to help nurture and create a community and an environment where not only is the child valued in a safe home and a safe community, but this child also can know and love a heavenly Father and an earthly family.
I'm Dave Welch. I'm the president of the Texas Pastor Council and the host of the Christian Citizen Podcast. And we are an organization of, by, and for pastors. Our mission is to restore the concept of citizenship as a functioning ministry of the local church, that we're to get outside the walls in all that we do in our discipleship for Christ. And that includes our role as a citizen of this country, to restore our voice as pastors. Our people are prepared biblically, as well as the voice to our governing officials, because they serve us. We've been blessed to have pastors of every color, every corner, come together and show that we can do it. We actually can unite under Christ and bring that influence and that impact out into the community around us. And this podcast has been a resource to help bring some issues, expertise, voice of pastors and others to come together and provide information on critical issues of our day in particular. And today we're going to address an issue that's been in central part of this ministry for a number of years now, because we really believe, it's just almost a no-brainer, if you will, to talk about the church's role in caring for the widows and the orphans. And the role of, for example, in the foster care and adoption should be one that most churches should take for as a granted, that we should be doing this more effectively. Many churches are, but we recognize that very few are doing it very well. And certainly when we look at the numbers of children in the foster care system alone, it shows that we can do much better. And I've had the privilege of getting to know and work with, who is our guest today, for many years. And we're going to talk a little bit about that from that point, what she's doing today and what we're seeing coming up in the legislature right now. So Debbie Tengler, I first met her when she was the director of Arrow Child and Family Ministry here in the Houston area, so the nationwide role in that in itself. But she has gone on and still serves in that area of ministry very extensively. So, Debbie, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
It's great to be with you, Dave, and to be with everyone today on the Pastors Council and citizens that are united to be able to have a voice, a united voice for the things that we care most about. And so it's really a great honor. Thank you.
Well, Debbie, how did you get involved in the whole adoption child care ministries back when we first met you at Arrow? And then what have you been doing since?
I like to always say, Dave, that God has a sense of humor, and we can make plans and God chuckles on the side and says, now watch what I can do. And in 2013, I heard distinctively the Lord said to resign my position as executive director of the ministry I helped start, which was an evangelism outreach course. Started in London, and it began with the letter A, and it was called Alpha. Okay, so we resigned expecting the next immediate thing to come along. 6 months, 9 months later, I get referred to someone to talk about their ministry, which they had founded, and they wanted to run the Alpha course for children and families who were dealing with foster care or involved in foster care. As we began the discussion and talking about fundraising and development from a relationship standpoint, this founder said to me, I think that you need to come be a part of what we're doing. And I said, no, thank you. And I was done with ministry. And again, God had a sense of humor. That organization, as you mentioned, is called Arrow, which started with A. So it seemed like we're saying in a semblance here. That ministry now today, led under Scott Lundy as the CEO of Arrow, allowed me to become the Chief Relations Officer for that organization, serving children in foster care, the largest number of foster to adopt services in the state of Texas, which is the second largest such organization, child welfare organization in the nation. Then also they did educational services for children with autism in Maryland as well. And so that came along, and I was introduced through a video interview with a gentleman, and he was a very successful businessman who was then taking on the endeavor to bring about the awareness of private infant adoption. And I thought, oh, well, we'll merge Arrow and their organization and partner and collaborate. Well, quickly the Lord revealed that I was to leave my comfortable space with Arrow and begin a journey into this world of private infant adoption. And that's when in 2024, August of 2024, I helped this organization called Adoption is an Option to be able to take this private foundation and be a voice across America that adoption is an option and one that now is forgotten about.
That's so powerful. Well, one of the things that, and right now, going back just a few years, we were part of a panel that the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick convened in Austin to address needed foster and adoption policies in the state of Texas. And so that was a great start, and he has a real heart for this. There were some things done, but much yet to do still. In the course of that, over this last year, and actually during that time, is when I first met Bishop W.C. Martin of Possum Trot, Texas. And I know you were well familiar with him and his story.
Right.
I had not heard it before that. He had done a book and had been traveling extensively before that and had been on a national television program. But you're right in this tiny little spot in Texas with this great story. Last year in 2024, Angel Studios produced, I believe, was one of the great films of our generation, because it's one of the great stories of our time that has brought this now front and center here. And what is the interface between the foster and adoption systems? What do you see as kind of the challenges that we have as a foster care issue here and nationwide? Serious issue? What are your thoughts?
Oh, Dave, we might be able to be here for the next 5 years. I go really in depth. So I'll try and be brief and succinct and be able to share with you that, unfortunately, in the United States alone, there are 500,000 children in the foster care system across the nation. In Texas alone, there's close to 50,000 children in the foster care system. The really, really sad and complexing thing about that, Dave, is one, that when they come into this system, their hopes are not really grand for a successful outcome. Mm-hmm. That can be changed. And that can be changed, I believe, by the church stepping in and creating a model that demonstrates what Christ is all about, that we love a person where they are and not shame and guilt them. And then we help walk them to the path that they need to be on for a successful life and becoming successful members of society. Sadly, in the welfare system, the longer a child remains in the foster care system, the less likely are the odds of them having a forever home. And parents, if a child is removed from their home for abuse, abandonment, or neglect, a child is then placed into a temporary situation. And that's what foster care was designed to be. And it was designed to be a stopgap for these children, hopefully for the purposes of reunification. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. And therefore, there needs to be families that will step in. And the trend of the church now needs to be one that cares for the biological family as well as the child and the adoptive family, should adoption then move to the next step. When that happens, you create a healthy society and oftentimes can help to reduce recidivism. And what I mean by that is the likelihood that their next child will not go into foster care.
That's a critical component, very important right there, because one of the things that really struck me, Debbie, is we were hearing these statistics, and you live with these things, but so many people don't know, for example, that these numbers probably have changed by now, but what I recall is that the average child in the foster care system is going to be in 14 different homes.
That's exactly right.
And before they age out, if not returned to their home or adopted. Is that
very typical? You think about a child that they talk about, the better they do in school, they've been in a consistent environment. They're not dealing with trauma. Every move a child makes, every time a child goes into foster care, they don't know what to expect. They don't know when they're going to be ripped out of their current situation and moved to another one where you don't know the school, you don't know the family, you don't know what is yours and what's not. It's a very tragic situation.
And the other
necessary.
I'm sorry. And the other thing that really just nailed me, because again, we hear a lot of talk these days, of course, and we should, about the scourge of human trafficking.
Oh.
What stunned me was the fact that in Texas in particular, that a majority of the human trafficking victims come right out of the foster care system. Is that accurate? Is that still the case?
Well, and let's back up for just a second. So let me just say that if a child becomes eligible in the foster care system for adoption, if they're not in a forever home by the time they're 10 years of age, the likelihood of them finding a forever home diminishes to almost 5%. And you think about, so a child is aging into their years where they most need a stable environment, a healthy family to help guide them through all of the things of adolescence. When that doesn't take place, they start looking elsewhere. Social media, friends, the outside world speaking into their lives. And that could be a predator who has access to them or who identifies their vulnerabilities, their need for love, their need to be accepted, their need to know that they have value and worth. And when that doesn't happen, then that predator will lean into those needs and begin to meet them. In the work that we did in the anti-trafficking world and the rehabilitative world of children who had been sex trafficked, we quickly saw that what God created in us, which was the need for unconditional love, the need for value, and the need to belong to a family, was actually one that was being met by a predator. He would tell them how much he loved them, how much he valued them, and then they would then be lured into the horrible, heinous crimes of sex trafficking. And if a child then is in those years of 13, 14, 18, they are then into a life that is very hard to get out of.
Boy, that's just the way of the deceiver. That's what he does so well. And, when we look at this issue, of course, backing up to the very beginning of this, why are they in the foster care system to begin with?
Right.
And this overlays so many different issues of our day. But the core one is the breakdown of the nuclear family.
Exactly.
Those children, if they were born into a married household with a mother and father who loved each other and raised them in a happy, healthy home, they're not in the foster care system. So when we look at the explosion the last 30, 40 years, or the implosion, if you will, of the traditional family unit, that has birthed all these pathologies. And of course, we're escalating issues right now in Harris County of juvenile violent crime, not just juvenile crime.
Correct.
But when you take a 12 and bounced around in different homes, has essentially been told they don't matter, that they have no value. And when we've devalued human life and then bred this into our children, and then we wonder why they're acting out this way or to these points where they're behaving in an antisocial manner. So what's the church doing about this? And what is our role? How do we step up? And then what needs to be changed in our state policies, for example, and in the Sound of Hope Act that's on the table this year?
I will say to you that what you talked about, the succession model that is so eloquently discussed, and there's great books about it, is that you graduate from high school, you get a full-time job, then you get married, then you have children. When that happens, especially in the environment of a church where people can be mentored and discipled and led in the truth and principles of God, the ability to reduce poverty is almost 100%, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at that, with a fatherless society, we will search to find a father that loves us, whether that's in a gang or being incarcerated. We are designed to have a father's love. And when that's not taught, when that's not given, and when that's not modeled, then we have what you described as the breakdown of society, that absolute hunger to get that need met. So in this, the foster care world has tried to step in. It's my belief that now is the church's time. And if there is a vulnerability, the church can step in, help aid that parent, even if it's to private infant adoption, if that's what's needed. And the statistics on that, Dave, show that a woman that places a child for adoption, and the most successful ones, the average age is 29 years of age, and she has 2 children at home already. What a greater model for the church to then step in and help her with that, but be able to love on her and be able to help a family who's looking to grow with the placement of this unborn child. When we look at the Sound of Hope Freedom Bill, what Bishop Martin and First Lady Donna exemplified was the ability that you can step in, love on a child, no matter what resources you have or don't have. They were that proven example of that. And with the bill that's being proposed, It is to say to the church and to the welfare system, it's time for the church to step up. Let us be the one that helps take care of these kids. Let us be the one to help nurture and create a community and an environment where not only is the child valued in a safe home and a safe community, but this child also can know and love a heavenly Father and an earthly family. And as this bill moves forward, it can garner the hope that more children will not come into foster care. Because unfortunately, what we have also done today is we have said that a woman has to, if she gets pregnant, endure shame and guilt. We all need to stop that immediately, and the church can lead that role. Then we also need to say to her, we can love on you, and with the adoption laws that are around today, you can know about your child and pick a family that will parent your child and know how that child is doing. Maybe even be involved in that child's life on a very regular basis. But you have a voice and you have a choice. And the church can help steward these elements along. With this bill, with the Sound of Hope Freedom, it is a call to not only the legislators today, but to the church that says these children are God's children, and it's our responsibility to step in and lead the way for them, and to be able to be the hope that they so desperately need, that there is love, there is a model to follow, and that they can have a forever family that is safe and willing to be right there with them from now on. And what a beautiful opportunity that says to children who have faced such horrific traumas in their life.
You know, that's so true. And for those who haven't seen that movie yet, they need to. And there's still availability for churches to arrange screenings of The Sound of Hope, the Possum Trot story. And you need to. It's a movie that everybody needs to watch. But a snapshot of there's no excuse. This little church, a tiny little African-American church in a very low-income area of Texas, essentially emptied the foster care system in their region. And they didn't just take on foster kids, they took a high-risk, troubled kids that have been through a lot of trauma. So this is the challenge for us, ultimately. You say 50,000 children right now in Texas alone. And yes, and many of those kids are, of course, we know there's a shortage of space when they're taken in. We need everything from emergency short-term placement where they can then maybe just stay a day or two or something while they're finding permanent placement, to permanent full foster homes, to forever homes. And, you know, it's a challenge for us. And this is the compelling part for me looking at the church is there's phases of this. There's only one really source of redemption in this whole process, and that's Jesus Christ.
Correct.
And when Christ changes a life, he changes generations. And, you know, I come from a background of generations of divorce and broken families. And I have his, hers, and their siblings. But you know what? My wife and I have been married for 42 years, almost 43 years. And that's because of Christ. We can stop this in every family, in every life. And that's really the objective here is we want to take those kids out of all of the brokenness they've been through and make them whole. And then they start new generations with strong families. We can turn this around, but it has to be done. If the church doesn't lead this, there's no plan B. There's no junior varsity team on this.
Well, and Dave, let me just interject real quickly is that the Martins showed us that nobody has an excuse. Everybody can do something. Additionally, hope, in my opinion, stands for helping other people excel. It's our job as the church to offer the hope. Christ is the hope of the world. And then I highly encourage people to do their research, to call their legislators. There's certainly plenty of ways to reach out about the Sound of Hope video, the movie you discussed, the bill, call your legislators, but then go and explore. For example, the organization I'm with, we're a storytelling endeavor, successful adoptees. We're telling birth mother stories. Adoptionisанoption.com is one of the ways that they can begin to look into ways that bring hope and healing. God may be calling us into a whole new area that you've never explored in your mind, as I had not. And now he has led me on a path to become a voice for those who need our voices and those who need to say that let's think differently about this. Let's examine other options. And it's the church's opportunity to shine. Dave, one quick thing. If we will reach into a vulnerable individual, primarily a mother, and if we as a church will minister to her, help understand what her options are, then help an adoptive family in their endeavors, and that means through their entire journey.
Yes.
We are building a community of believers that step in a time of need, that offer hope and direction for a young, maybe very young child or a teenager. And then we help create a model for both to walk in. That is called church. And that's what we're called to do as believers. I believe we will be held accountable, Dave.
Amen. I believe that. And this whole framework of the sanctity of human life really starts with the intrinsic, sacred, divine value placed in every spark of human life, from conception until natural death. And our care and concern has to encompass that entire spectrum of the church. And we are the voice in this. So we're to be engaged in the process of serving, ministering, teaching, sharing, and also what happens in these laws, which we have to interface with. We have a system that is frankly still very dysfunctional. And here in the state of Texas, it's not a lot better. I've seen it in some states that are absolutely horrific and evil. Texas is, I'd say, moderately to semi-dysfunctional. But that means is there's still a lot of cleanup we need to do in how the Child Protective Services works, the whole process of foster and adoption, so families don't have to go through this myriad of bureaucracy, fears and concern about how this affects my own family. There's a lot of things. The good news is we have leadership right now in the state of Texas that is very open. The governor, lieutenant governor, legislative leadership helping, but we're going to have to step up and press and make sure. So as Debbie mentioned, we need to have people calling your state representatives, your state senators right now, and say, we need to see the Sound of Hope Act passed. And then folks, Debbie, how do they reach you? How do they get more information about what you're doing? What's your website?
We're at adoptionisанoption.com. They are certainly willing to email me at debbie@adoption.is. And then go and see our other sites on there. There's a way to reach me on that site as well. And I'm available anytime to talk more about this. We can be the hope. And we work to remove shame and guilt. We're not only going to help impact those on the pro-abortion side, we're going to also impact those on the pro-life side. Because unfortunately, there is a bias in our society that absolutely doesn't need to be there about adoption. And we can remove that, and we can bring hope and healing to so many in the church and out of the church. And we can make a change and a difference that I think God would be pleased about, Dave. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be a voice for these kiddos.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Debbie, for what you do. And look, pastors, most of you know, and we all understand, adoption is a core fundamental presence in Scripture from Genesis until Revelation. You're adopted. So the whole framework of this is front and center ministry. There's a lot we have to do, so this is our charge going forward here, and we'll provide additional resources. Come to our conference. We're gathering in the Capitol. We're going to be talking about this issue. We'll have Bishop Martin there. There'll be resources we'll put up at the end of the video here for barcodes. You can check resources the Possum Trot movie is putting forth and out there. But the main thing is commitment to step up and say, we're going to make this a priority ministry of this church. We have well over 30,000 churches in the state of Texas. And if half of those churches, part of those families in these churches decided to take on one child, it would eradicate the entire pool of children waiting for this right now. So
it could change the future dynamics.
Absolutely. So thank you, Debbie, for your ministry and all that you do. And we'll look forward to pressing ahead and working together. And we'll have you on again as we dive deeper into this issue.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.